Right, I think we'll get started. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. I'm Amy Davis, Content Marketing Manager at Reed. As you all know, we're here to discuss how to attract and retain the best talent for your business in 2021. And to do this today, I'm joined by a panel of recruitment experts. First, I'd like to welcome our very own James Reed, CEO and Chairman of Reed. Good afternoon, James.
Hello, Amy. Good afternoon.
Yeah, you're right. Also, I'd like to welcome Chris Adcock, Managing Director of Reed Technology. Good afternoon, Chris. Are you there?
Afternoon. Looking forward to this.
And then Claire Harvey, Managing Director of Reed's Core Network. Good afternoon, Claire. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Good afternoon, Amy.
And finally, last but not least, Lucy Delawisso, Divisional Managing Director of Reed Further Education. Good afternoon, Lucy.
Good afternoon to you.
So this webinar is going to be recorded. If you've got any questions along the way, then please use the chat function on the top right and tell us who you'd like to address your question to. We'll take 15 minutes roughly at the end to address your questions. So as they pop into your head, do pop them in there. As you may or may not know, we launched our salary guides at the beginning of last month. These guides that cover 13 industries assess 6.5 million jobs that were added to reed.co.uk over the last 3 years. And they provide the average salaries offered for some of the top roles across the UK. So firstly, I'd like to start by asking James why these guides are important. Why should business
Thank you, Amy. Yes. Well, you just said that they're based on data arising from 6.5 million jobs placed on reed.co.uk. And last June, I asked a question of the team at reed.co.uk. And I was quite surprised by the answer. My question was a simple one. It's what's the average salary of the jobs posted on the website right now? And this was in June 2020. And the answer that came back was £40,000, which was a lot higher than I'd expected, because before the pandemic, the average was around £35,000. So we'd seen in a 3-month period a very significant shift in what the average salary was. And what's going on here? Well, it was not obvious that people were getting pay increases during the pandemic. Far from it. What we realized was going on is a lot of the entry-level jobs, the lower paid jobs, the jobs in retail and hospitality, had just disappeared, and so the average had gone up. So why I think these salary surveys are really useful is because they have really granular information about what's going on in each of the sectors that they cover. So if you want to look at accounting salaries, you have really granular information around the different types of accountant you might wish to hire, and also around the different parts of the country you might wish to hire them in. And I think this year that's particularly important because there's so much change going on in the labour market. There are so many people that are in demand, and it's actually a really good time to be recruiting. So whether you want to retain someone or recruit someone, it's really important to have up-to-date information.
Fabulous. Thanks, James. So like you've said, COVID-19 has brought challenges across the board for all of us. But does it really matter about what salary people are earning? Aren't many people at the minute, aren't people lucky just to have a job? Claire, what would you say about that?
Oh, I always find that phrase quite frustrating, actually, because I think for the majority of people, they just really want to add value to their company. And it's often quite the other way, where I think companies really should be proud of the employees that they've got and should feel lucky that they've got some really good people who work for them. And also, despite of the recession, many companies are still thriving, and we are finding that there are still some companies that are very successful, and the competition for talent is still very real. The job market has certainly changed a lot since perhaps we would have heard a phrase like that, which perhaps our grandparents might have used or something like that, you know, to make you stay in a job for 30 years. But I think good candidates now still very much have a good, you know, a wide selection of jobs that they can go to. And we find when we're shortlisting with candidates, you know, they might have 3 or 4 companies perhaps on interview at any one time. So, you know, I think it's very much, if you're a good candidate, you know, it's still very much wide open there in terms of companies attracting the best.
Fab. Claire, Lucy, Chris, have you got anything to add to that from your kind of experience? Lucy?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly for me, recognising the fact that many people have faced employment issues and so on over the last few months is important. But I mean, for my team and my division, you know, I'm the one that feels lucky to have them, and really not the other way around. And I do think, you know, salary is important. You know, we've all got financial commitments every month, but there are other aspects, and I think COVID has brought that with it. You know, a bit of a new thought process actually to what you want from employment as well.
Fab. Chris, anything you want to add?
No, I'd agree with everything that's been said. I think this year we're predicting potentially the most people to move roles in a year than we've ever seen. So you need to hold on to your top talent, and one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the ways is through salary.
Fabulous. So you've all got experience in different areas of recruitment. How can businesses ensure that when they have a vacancy, they're only attracting the best talent and the best candidates? Chris, do you want to take this one first from a tech perspective?
Yeah, of course. So this is a question I really love, because I think the key here is the word best. Best talent isn't just about, you know, the best person who's currently looking for a job, the best person who applies to an advert or puts their CV online. It's about finding the best person for the job, full stop. So I think the first and foremost way to ensure you're getting that best talent is to partner with a good quality recruitment agency. Obviously, I'd be biased and be recommending Reed outright. But an example for why is we work with what we call passive candidates. So these are people who aren't naturally looking, but we engage with them through our meetups, through our webinars, just by keeping in contact. And it means when the right role comes up, we know that we can turn their head. We know that we can get them interested in something, get them excited about something where they previously weren't looking at moving. So if you genuinely want the best talent out there, I think engaging with a true partnership with a recruitment agency is the best way to go.
Fab. Lucy, how does that differ in further education?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar. I'd obviously agree that for many roles, you know, it is very worthwhile engaging with a trusted recruitment partner. And I also think it's very important to be clear for exactly what you're looking for. Some of our job specs and person specifications in FE can be quite general. And I think if you've got a clear idea of who you're looking for, the personality, the culture, the inspiration that you want from them, I think that really helps to detail that as much as possible so that you get the right applicants.
Fab. Claire, is there anything you'd like to add from your experience from the other industries that we recruit for?
Yeah, I would say in terms of sort of hints for clients, it's not just about monetary rewards. It's definitely about what are the things that you can offer a potential employee. So that, you know, culture is a big part of why someone might want to join, and what the company's values are. So I'd always say, you know, that you should have a strong value and a strong brand, and make sure that you promote that culture. Have a good EVP, which is the employee value proposition. Make sure you know that when you're talking to candidates at interview, you can really demonstrate why that candidate would want to come and work for you. I think that's really important. And I think in these days where we've seen sort of TripAdvisor perhaps, you know, take hold of where we might want to spend our holidays, likewise, Glassdoor is an opportunity for you to make sure that your company is represented well, because candidates will do some research as well before they join a company. So I think it's really important that you think about your company reputation as well, and you know, do whatever you can to make sure that referrals and things like that people are saying good things about your brand. Yeah,
definitely. James, anything from your experience that you'd like to add to that?
Well, I think they've covered it very well. The only thing I'd say is I always like a short list rather than just one candidate. So I'm never quite sure who is the best candidate until I've met a few people. So you know, your recruitment partner, I would hope, would give you a good short list. And sometimes you might surprise yourself and choose someone from that list that maybe you hadn't at first expected, having evaluated them a little bit more. So I think it's really important too that the recruitment partner, be it a person or a company, really understands your business and your requirements and looks on your behalf. So it's really quite a personalized service that you get what you need, because companies are different and some people really thrive in some businesses and then you find the same people don't do so well somewhere else.
Yeah.
Just that point on the shortlist, we've always found that our wild cards are always a really interesting topic with clients. We always like to throw in that kind of one that they wouldn't have usually looked at or would thought of, and then they meet them face to face, and quite often it either potentially completely changes the recruitment process because they realise maybe what they wanted isn't what they want anymore, or for some reason captures their imagination. So yeah, it's a great point.
I think the other thing as well, Amy, for me, just very briefly on that one, is sometimes the best candidate isn't always the candidate that can do the job right now. I think one thing I always try and encourage clients to think of is take perhaps a candidate that can do 80% of the job brilliantly, and that other 25% will actually come with time. It gives room for someone to develop and grow in a company, not just have the person that looks on paper perfect now. That's definitely would be my sort of another little tip.
I guess if you invest in somebody as well, the loyalty builds up with them as well. So
that's right.
That's a bonus. Yeah. Okay, so on to the next question. As part of our salary guide content that you may or may not have seen, we surveyed industry professionals to see what benefits they actually looked for and what they actually received. Surprisingly, though, the benefits that people look for weren't necessarily those that they wanted. No matter what industry, it appeared the most sought after benefits that people were looking for were flexible working, home working, performance bonuses, a good pension above kind of average contributions, and good healthcare packages. Why are benefits so important, and what would you suggest to businesses in your industry that don't offer any additional benefits? Lucy, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a really interesting point for me, because within further education and a college being really the centre of the community in some aspects, there are already really good benefits. So it's a nice high pension, there's holidays, which is around the school holidays, obviously. They pay for relocation, they have skill shortage packages, and then there's on-site benefits there, such as gym use, discounted hairdressing, discounted beauty. Many of the time you don't have to pay for your parking as well. So there are lots of different aspects within further education which makes up the benefit. I think as a general rule, we could look at offering a bit more of a flexible benefit option. So actually matching, this is what we can offer, and actually, you know, this is what you can choose and pick from out of the portfolio. So I think that would be quite interesting and new to bring on board.
Brilliant. Claire, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think having a good overall benefits package is really important. And I think perhaps the thing to remember is different people might want different things along different stages of their career journey. So certainly I know when I was, you know, back in the day when I was recruiting young accountancy candidates, if they were perhaps at a more junior end of their career, then even having free car parking would be a benefit, you know. And I think quite often when a client would brief a spec to you, they perhaps don't think about all the extra things that they actually offer. So it could be a dress down Friday, it could be an early finish on a Friday, it could be that they run some sales competitions and they give away a bottle of champagne each month. Quite a lot of companies we used to work with used to have perhaps an annual holiday that they used to give away as a prize for top employees. And you know, and certainly as candidates perhaps mature through their career, as you said, you know, as Lucy said, pension, good healthcare benefits become more important at that stage. So I think it's important that perhaps you tailor the package, as Lucy said, really, perhaps to the, you know, where you're looking for what type of employees, and is it someone who's young and really values that free car park, or is it someone perhaps who's more, you know, more thinking about their pension and their retirement plans? But flexible working definitely seems to be a common theme these days. You know, it's certainly, you know, people are looking for much more work-life balance, perhaps to go to the gym on the way into work and things. So certainly something we've adopted at Reed is much more flexible working recently, just to sort of make sure that we appeal to everybody as well. You know, still be current.
Brilliant. Yeah, I guess it's good to assess regularly as well what kind of benefits people are looking for and check regularly. So Chris, I'm going to spin this slightly a different way for you. What would you do if you were a small tech business and couldn't afford to offer kind of the lavish benefits packages that some of the bigger organisations could?
I think the first thing to point out there is a lot of the ones that have been listed as the top requested benefits are actually free. So, you know, flexible working, home working, you know, Claire even mentioned things like dress down days and things like that. So I think it's we don't need to look at benefits always as a direct cost. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is, for me, benefits are kind of like the shiny wrapping paper around the present, that they get your attention, they get you interested, but they're never a reason, or in my experience anyway, they're never a reason that someone is going to accept or decline a job. So yes, it's always better if you can have a good benefits package, and it's great for retention and people feeling valued. But actually, what people want is the good quality work. You know, in the technology industry, they want to be working on the latest tech. They want to be knowing that they're working on something that is going to push their career forward and get them excited. You know, every day when they get up in the morning. You know, we talk about loving Mondays. You know, what's more powerful than somebody who gets up every Monday morning knowing that they're going into work and they're going to love what they're doing that day? So yes, by all means, make sure you build a benefits package that is as good as you can afford and be as creative as possible. But it's not the be all and end all. For me, I'd always focus on the work they're doing, the people in the business, and the culture you have.
Fab, thank you. So James, you and your father have made Reed what it is today. In your experience, how can businesses create an employer brand that makes professionals want to work for you? Because I know that when I got the job at Reed, I wanted to work for Reed. So you must be doing something right.
You should be answering the question then. I'm travelling in the fog. Well, I'll tell you what we try and do, and whether it always works is a moot point. But I mean, I was interested in the discussion around benefits because, you know, that's always, you're always going to be compared with others, and I think what we try and do is create a distinctive experience, really, and we try and create a company, a working environment that is, I would say, purpose driven. You know, we have a simple purpose at Reed, which is improving lives through work. You know, 4 words that everyone can remember, and when we come into work each day, it's something that each of us can set about doing. So I think that's important to us, and I think that connects with the type of people who want to work in our type of business. The other thing that's really important to us is our values as a company. We're a family company, and the values are our family's values, and they're shared across the business, and we expect, you know, those values to be upheld. And I think a lot of people recognize that, and it resonates. You know, everyone wants to be treated fairly. People want to work together successfully in teams, and people want to be able to be recognized and take responsibility for things. So, you know, our values are really important to us. But ultimately, I think, you know, it's about who you're working with. It's the sort of spirit in the company, and what I love about our business is the people in it. And I think, you know, when we host lunches, which when we were able to, we do at Christmas for people who've been with the company 10, 20, 30 years. I always ask them, you know, why have you hung around so long? And it's always because of the other people, and that they enjoy working with the other people, and the variety of work that they're given, and the opportunity to learn and grow. So those are the things I think are really important that we seek to create in the business.
Fab. Talking of learning and growing, there is a lot of debate about learning and development of staff. Claire, why is it important to offer training and development opportunities to your staff?
Well, I think, you know, it's incredibly important that people see that they have almost a lifetime of a career with a company. And I think for the majority of people, certainly when I've interviewed, you know, looking for recruitment consultants, one of the first things that they say about Reed is, you know, we've heard your reputation for offering industry leading training. And that's often why people will join Reed as opposed to one of the other recruitment agencies, because they know they will be set up for success. So I think having, you know, a really good training offering is incredibly important, because it does show investment from the company that you want to invest in that person for the long term. And I think as an employee, you know that you will learn and develop with that company with a view to, you know, staying and developing and having a good career. And so I think having a good training offering is incredibly important. Yes.
Yeah, me too, I agree. Chris, what would you say to those companies who do not offer development within their workforce, or are worried about, there's quite a few people that often get worried about investing in staff and then them leaving the organisation?
Yeah, so I love Richard Branson's quote here. So, you know, train people well enough so they could leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to. And I think it kind of resonates with what James was saying earlier around, you know, having a good culture, having people wanting to work there means that they might be able to go off and get a job somewhere else. They might even be able to go off and get a job with a better salary, who knows? But if they want to work there, if they're passionate, then they will stay. To me, the risk is actually bigger people staying on untrained. There's that old adage of two directors talking to each other and one saying, oh, what if we spend all this money on training and then they leave? And the other responds with, but what if we don't spend the money and train them and they stay? And it's actually a big risk that over time your staff and your workforce is almost de-skilled compared to the market. So training and development, I think it's so important on an individual level to make people feel valued and continue their careers forward, but actually at a high level it's important investment for a business.
Yeah, definitely. So Lucy, your turn. Here's a bit of a scenario for you. Your best employee hands in their notice. What can you do to stop them from leaving? What should you have done to prevent them handing in their notice in the first place?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, people hand in their notice for all sorts of reasons. Some of them are personal ones that actually you can't overcome. However, I think, you know, thinking about my division in particular, prevention is definitely key here. And I think if someone, you know, those that are your best employees and your most successful employees, they need your time, they need your recognition, they need reward, they need reviews. And, you know, sometimes these best employees can go overlooked because they are your best employees. So I think prevention is absolutely key. I think sometimes it's very unfortunate by the time someone is actually handing in their notice, it's often too late. So I would recognise that they've already made that decision. I guess just getting to know your employees, knowing what they're after, what they want from their career, and making sure that as a company you can inspire them to achieve that either within your team or within the company as a whole as well, so that actually they're not seeking kind of outside of what they're doing every day.
James, is there anything you'd add to Lucy's answer?
Yeah, I like Lucy's answer. I mean, I've had experience of this over the years, and my personal decision on this is don't bother. If someone's given in their resignation, it is too late, and if you had valued them enough beforehand, they might not have done. So I favour moving on. You know, recruit someone else, and someone new will become your best employee, and I think that's better for everyone, really, because nothing lasts forever. You know, someone might give a good innings in a company for 3, 5, 10, or even 30 years, but they're not there forever. And it's important that, you know, I think it's demeaning to them and to you if you end up in a sort of money negotiation. And all our research shows that if someone is counter-offered, they end up leaving anyway. And we're usually on the other side of a conversation like this. Usually we've supplied a candidate for a new job, and the candidate is counter-offered by their existing employer and decides to stay put. But invariably that person has left within a year, so it didn't really work out for either party. And I think, yeah, when it's time to move on, it's time to move on. Yeah,
no, I agree. Okay, so in May last year, obviously, as we all know, an incident of police brutality in Minneapolis in America saw an African-American man, George Floyd, killed. The Black Lives Matter movement re-emerged under the spotlight as a result of that, and it put diversity, inclusion and belonging high on the workplace agenda. But how does this fit with talent attraction and retention? Claire, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they were certainly shocking images that we saw, weren't they, in America at the time? And I think one thing I would say is I think achieving workplace diversity has been a top priority for companies for many years. I think D&I is certainly much more than just a HR checklist. And actually, when it's executed correctly, it does have a direct positive impact on the performance of a company. So there's actually quite a lot of research that having a diverse workforce does create a much better company and a stronger company. And in fact, as much as 19% improved income on a company that has a diverse workforce. So I think there's lots of reasons why you would want to do it. And I think for me, employees who have different backgrounds definitely bring different skills and experience. And, you know, a good friend of mine who is, you know, arguably from one of the minority groups has always said to me that it's also important to have a diverse mindset. And that's equally as important, you know, than just having perhaps you know, people that perhaps tick a box. You know, you want people who are going to challenge the way that you think. So I think companies who make the most of their employees feeling included definitely impacts retention. So I would say, you know, there are lots of reasons why, you know, that, you know, diversity and inclusion is incredibly important.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone else have any feelings on that or ideas?
I think there's a lot more that needs to be done, really. I think, you know, there was an article in the Financial Times today saying that the top companies, there's not a single black director in the UK, which is pretty shocking. And there aren't enough black leaders in business generally. So I think, you know, we might have a diverse workforce to an extent, but the next job is to make sure that people are given equal opportunities to be promoted and to take leadership positions. So there's a lot more work to be done. And our data shows, you know, that the outstanding contribution that people from all sorts of backgrounds make. So it's definitely the right thing to do, but business has a way to go, I think, to do better.
What can be done, do you think, James, to encourage it more, to encourage companies to train people into higher positions?
Well, there's a lot is underway, you know, sort of mentoring and encouraging, you know, wider applicants to jobs, shortlisting, and I think, you know, all of those things should be done, and you know, we need to accelerate that where we can. And I mean, within Reed, we have a number of groups where we're seeking to accelerate that, but we haven't got where we should be yet.
I think the other thing, Amy, I think that there's been a lot of research into even small things like how you write a job advert that might naturally just have more male applicants than female applicants. There's quite an interesting thought process at interview around how male and female applicants might actually showcase their skills. Quite often it's said that women perhaps are less forthright in telling you what they're good at, and men are better at doing that. So I think actually, you know, we talked about partnering with a good agency, but sometimes I think if you do genuinely want some help in creating a really good diverse work, you know, shortlist, it's also useful to work with somebody like an agent who can help you write a really good job description and advert that will appeal to a wide range of people from different backgrounds.
Cool. Chris, anything you want to add?
I think most of it's been said, but for me, it's such a strong talking point, but it needs to become more than that. It needs to become action, and that's hard to do. If we're being really honest, it's hard to do. But the earlier we can start, the better it will be for the long term for, you know, our children, our children's children. So you know, there's a lot that we're involved in, and this is the opportunity to go through a list of all of those things. But for me, yes, we need to look at the here and now, but to make it a lot easier for us to fix in the future, you know, going back to the, you know, even like school level and things, I think it's really important for us to be looking at grassroots personally.
Lucy, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, completely agree with all their points. And I think it is an agenda that we talk about often at Reed. You know, I'm a woman in leadership, so I'm a mentor there. And we have lots of various different mentors. So yeah, I just think that the key is talking and teaching and educating.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So finally, before we get on to questions that are coming in from the audience, it would be great to get all of your ideas on the year ahead. What do you think will be the biggest challenges for businesses when looking to recruit? Has COVID-19 really changed the way we work? And what impact will this have on talent attraction and retention? Sorry, I know it's a very long-winded question. James, do you want to start with that one?
Oh, right, 3 questions, isn't it?
Yeah, 3 in 1.
Yeah, well, I think you know, the pandemic has changed things hugely, and those changes will be enduring in many ways. So I don't think about going back to anything that was perhaps, you know, current in 2019. I think the only way we can go is forwards, and what changes will be sort of enduring. And one huge change is the way we work. I mean, I was a deep skeptic about working from home. I'm very happy to admit that. And the pandemic has accelerated that process, and it's enabled it. We as a business have, 3,000 people now working from home, and I'm a believer because, they've been incredible and incredibly productive. So as long as you can get it set up right, you can work very effectively, dynamically, as it's now called. And I think that's going to be an enduring change, and that will have a big effect on how offices are used. I think offices will become much more like collaborative spaces than places necessarily we all go every day, 5 days a week, as was the case in the past. I also think, Chris mentioned this earlier, that 2021 is going to be a year of great movement in the labour market. These changes that began, before last year were accelerated last year, and there are a lot of people, I think, who are going to move jobs this year, and that's partly some because they have to. There are still 4 million people furloughed, and I wonder how many of those will go back to their pre-existing jobs as opposed to eventually, and hopefully not too slowly, into new jobs. And so there's a huge sort of group of people there who will be on the move, and also there are a lot of people who sat tight during the pandemic who are now perhaps thinking, I might want to go somewhere else, either to earn more or to work more locally, or for all sorts of reasons. They've sat tight and now they're thinking maybe it's time to move. So I think from a hiring point of view, this is a really great time to be recruiting because there's so much talent available. I mean, unlike any time in my career, really good people from all sorts of sectors through no fault of their own are now available. So it's a great time to go recruiting, and we'll do all we can to help you with that. We've got a huge number of people signed up now who are looking for new opportunities. So I think there's going to be a lot of change this year, and a lot of the changes that were introduced by the pandemic will be enduring.
Wow. Okay. Lucy, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think in a lot of ways, we've kind of shot forward by 10 years in terms of technology and flexible working, remote working. I think one of the biggest experiences that I've had in further education over the last few months is the remote teaching, so blended learning as it's called. And within the division, we kind of have this instant messaging, and actually, we've got people in our Croydon office who are filling bookings from remote learning with the really niche candidates, so engineering, construction lecturers up in Leeds. So that's really opening up the catchment area of where you can find very, very decent candidates from. So for us, I mean, we've seen many benefits really on what it's done to the sector, and yeah, how it's excelled us forward.
Fab. Claire?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the biggest changes certainly is around travel for me. I think, as James said, we've sort of demonstrated that as an economy we can work from home more effectively than we thought. And what we're seeing actually is clients who would typically perhaps be recruiting in perhaps a tight geographical area because of the commute are absolutely much more open to where that candidate could live. And we're seeing some sort of real changes in perhaps the way that certainly we will approach our candidate search for clients, and definitely widening that opportunity. So just because you live in Edinburgh and you might want to stay in Edinburgh, that opportunity now is you could potentially fill that vacancy from Aberdeen, from Glasgow, from Newcastle. Candidates don't have to be in work 5 days a week, and so that really changes the opportunities for people and our ability to attract people from a much wider area.
Does it make competition harder? Yeah.
I guess it will. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's quite early days in this approach that clients are having with us, where they would have said, we want a candidate that lives really close to where we are because we understand it's a difficult commute. So we are really sort of working with lots of new candidates, and again, the competition it will be fierce.
Yeah.
On that point, Claire, I think James said earlier about property. I think we're going to see a big change in where companies end up basing themselves, and especially certain skill sets. Previously, when you'd look at a location that you were potentially going into, you'd look at the candidate's availability, the ability to commute there. Whereas now, actually, you can set yourself up completely differently, and potentially move out of expensive city centres, etc. So I think we're going to see a real change in how property and technology kind of merge to create these working environments.
Fab. Lovely. So we finished a bit earlier than I thought we would, so we can open up to the Q&A. We've got lots of questions that have come in. If you've got a question to ask the panel, then please put your question in the chat now, but we have quite a few. So the first one is from Will, and it's addressed to all of you. It said, would the panel agree that organisations that make candidates feel really valued and wanted during the recruitment process have a much better success rate when securing those candidates at offer stage? Let's start with Lucy.
Yes, I would agree with that. And everything, I guess, which is said there, you do need to be very clear that you do like someone, but also as a candidate applying to somewhere, I want to feel like I am stretching and that I want to impress them as well. So yes, I agree with what Will says, and I think it goes further. You want someone to really want the job.
Fab. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, so this comes back down to kind of attracting the best talent. That by definition, you'd imagine they're going to be sought after. So I've always said an interview works both ways. So when I interview somebody, I always leave a good amount of time at the end for them to essentially interview me and see if they want to come and work for me and my business. So yeah, I find we have worked with clients before in the past who are almost a bit arrogant about it and therefore don't give that opportunity and see it as a privilege to come and work for them. And often they've lost good quality candidates, whereas the ones that feel like they're almost selling themselves, selling their journey, their vision, their passion, are much more likely to get that offer accepted at the end.
What about you, Claire? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I always think you want to be in the position to say no. So if you're the client interviewing, you want to do such a good job that all of the candidates say yes. And likewise with the candidates, you want the candidates all wanting to go and work for that employer. And so, my feeling is, even if I might not be interested in everybody, I want to be in the position to say no, not them. So I always think leave a great impression. Fab.
James, what about you? From your experience, do you agree?
I think Claire makes a good point. I mean, an interview in the end is a conversation, and it should be as constructive as possible. And so I think it's important to open up both ways, and so that you get to know each other and you can see whether there's an opportunity here that works both ways. I mean, the other thing I would stress is, particularly now, I mean, in the old days, if you were rude to candidates or the candidate came to a company and felt they'd been poorly treated, they might tell a few people down the pub afterwards or at the cafe or whatever. Now they can tell the world on Twitter and online that they've had a shocking interview, and they do. So, news can travel pretty quickly. So your company's reputation and your personal reputation as an interviewer is especially important now. And I think that's right, that it should be, because I think everyone deserves courtesy and fair treatment when they come for an interview.
Mm. Wow. We talked about Glassdoor a little earlier as well, didn't we, Amy? The importance now, people doing their research before they even come for their first interview. Yeah,
it's more important than ever because everything's so transparent these days. You need to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
So there's another question through here. I know James covered it briefly in an answer to one of his questions a little while ago. But this is to you, Chris. Chris, it's anonymous. You mentioned this year that will be the year when people change jobs more than ever. Why do you think that is?
So I think James did cover it, but personally, I think there's a number of reasons. It's almost like every year, a certain amount of people change jobs. Now, this year, I think those people that would have considered it haven't, for security reasons. They felt that it's better to stay safe. But their reasons, their desire, their wanting to move jobs hasn't disappeared. It's almost like the counteroffer points. Nothing's going to have changed. They were still, for some reason, unhappy and wanting a new job beforehand. So I think that's going to kind of almost build up. So we'll have all the people from last year that potentially wanted to change jobs, and then all the people from this year. So I think the market is going to be improving. We've got some exciting stuff happening with the vaccines, and it's not going to be a sudden spike, but I think a rising tide lifts all ships. I think everyone's going to be in a better place to look to move. So it's an optimistic view, but we're optimistic here at Reed.
Yeah, it's the best way to be at the moment, I think. Okay, so we've got one from Tunisia. I don't mind who wants to take this, but I'll read it out. What is the best way to encourage the spread of our EVP, employee value proposition message, and EDI? I need some glasses, I think. Equality, diversity, and inclusion throughout the business. It definitely starts with us in the recruitment, but would like to know how to evaluate this through line managers, etc. Did you get that? Did I read that okay? Claire, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, we do quite a lot of work with sort of our internal communications with our, we call them co-members at Reed, and we regularly survey our co-members' opinions. I think that's been very useful for us in terms of perhaps some of the direction that we might want to take projects or take culture issues. We've had through lockdown something called lunch and learn, so we've used the opportunity with the remote device to really engage with our employees twice a week for an hour on topics that we felt would be really interesting to our co-members. And that's created a lot of engagement with subjects like Black Lives Matter, women in leadership, and training. So we've used those opportunities. We've had to perhaps just shape the way we communicate with our co-members over the last 12 months through the use of the digital device. And to say we regularly use that survey to make sure that we are still in line with what our co-members want. I think you've got to constantly evaluate, haven't you? That's the thing. I think you constantly have to check that you're staying relevant and you're still giving the sort of things that your co-members or your members of staff are looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Has anyone else got anything to add to that response?
Yeah, so I'd say if the question is around how to encourage the spread of it externally, so how do you get your EVP out to other people? I think it's about making sure that everyone takes that task on. I think the question mentioned there around, is it a lot of it sits with the people in recruitment, but it's actually got to be a task that everyone takes on. So for me, when we look at clients and when they're recruiting, what do? You look at their LinkedIn profiles, you look at, do they have an Instagram account, or as we said earlier, Glassdoor. So it's making sure that each and every opportunity to push that out into the world, to show people how good you are, take full advantage of it. And that sits with, I was going to say all managers in the business, but I'd argue it's everybody in the business.
Lucy, anything to add, James?
No, I can completely agree with that. It sits with everyone.
Fab. Okay, here's one for you, James, I think. It's an anonymous one. How can a startup company attract good talent?
Oh, good question. Well, I think it all depends what your business is and how exciting your sort of vision or projection of your idea is, so that you can persuade people to come and join you, really. I suppose one of the risks around a startup is people wonder whether it's going to be a secure job for a while. But my wife's actually just started a business, so it's quite interesting. She makes honey whiskey and honey products, and she's got now 3 people working with her, and they're excited about the product, and they enjoy the selling of that product and the production, etc. So I think you want to find a little family of people that shares your excitement for what your idea is, and take it from there. Because if everyone's coming into work with the same level of enthusiasm as you are, your startup will be a success.
It helps when the honey whiskey is pretty good as well.
You need a good product.
Good product, yeah.
They got some for Christmas. Oh no, our 60th birthday. So,
it's all gone now.
Thanks, guys. Okay, Lucy, I'll give this one to you. Where can recruitment consultants stroke agents search for diverse candidates? Is there a set place?
Everywhere, I think. I don't think there's one set place, but and when we've got in the FE team, it's a very, very diverse team, and they work brilliantly together. But there's no one set place. I think, just being very open and honest, and it's all about the drive, and it's all about the enthusiasm, and it's all about the motivation, and that should be it, full stop.
Is there anything you guys would like to, anyone else would like to add to that?
Just to say, in support of what Lucy said, she has a very diverse team, and I think that you start with a diverse group of people, because they will be better placed to go and find other people from all sorts of backgrounds than a team from a single background would be. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I think it's really important to begin with yourselves and start, make sure you have a diverse team in place that then goes out and recruits on behalf of others.
Fab, thank you both for that. So another one, Chris, I'm going to give you this one. You are lucky. How will the pandemic change the onboarding process for agencies and companies?
I saw this one earlier. So I think it's already changed. I think it's the first point to make. We all kind of, I remember kind of that March, April time, we all kind of went into a bit of a panic mode looking at technology and how we can support our clients in onboarding remotely. And one thing that was really pleasing is it happened seamlessly. So yes, we had to go out to the market and we had to really come up with products to support our clients. But it happened really well, because I think people have almost been crying out for this opportunity for some time. So so technology is key, but then technology can only go so far. So we've had a lot of clients recently that have been sending kind of almost like mini gift baskets and things, making them feel part of the team, having working lunches on things like Teams and Zoom to make them feel part of the team. But fundamentally, I'd always say is there is no substitute for being face to face. So if possible, if you can bring in an element of getting together every X period of time, obviously post lockdown, I think that will be worth its weight in gold moving forward. So yeah, I think it has already changed, and I think it will continue to adapt. I think we've been thrown all the way 100% remote. And I think over time we're going to move into some kind of, I don't know, maybe 50-50 space.
Something in the middle. Okay, so next, Matt has asked, this is to all of you, although the increase in remote working will present a wide selection of opportunities for both candidates and employers, one issue is training. How does the panel anticipate this potential issue being dealt with? Let's go with Claire first.
Yeah, well, as I touched on briefly, we've definitely embraced more digital-based training. We probably, we have always gathered our people together quite significantly before to deliver classroom-based training, and that's obviously, from environmentally probably not brilliant, and from a cost it's not brilliant. So actually what this has really done is shown us that we can deliver some superb training digitally. And your capacity to have breakout groups and all sorts of things like that now. So I think we have definitely improved our skills in how we develop digital-based training, and I think there's still some powerful training that you want to deliver face-to-face. There will be times that will still be the best method, but definitely moving and increasing your skill set on how to deliver good digital-based training is going to be really important.
I'd argue, is it an issue though, or is it an opportunity? Because for me, looking at the training we've done previously has always been, genuinely world class. So I doubt there were many other companies of our level who were doing the training that we were doing. But we've upped our game. We really have. We've got something called Lunch and Learns, which is just over lunchtime, a quick session run by an expert who we could have never dragged that expert to a classroom and pay for their travel, their time out of the business. But we've been able to really up our game with our L&D, and from a really high standing point already. So personally, I see it as an opportunity.
Yeah, it's made it more accessible for everyone, hasn't it? And more of an equal standing. What about you, Lucy? Any thoughts on that? Anything additional?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We've onboarded a few consultants over lockdown. It's worked out really well. I think you can focus a lot better. On a personal level, I've done divisional calls where we've gone through desk plans and why we do what we do. So I've been able to give people a lot more of my attention as well, which, when you're talking about training and teaching people on the job, your own experiences and what you can bring to that as managers and as senior colleagues is all really, really important to that onboarding and training that they're going to go through. And then we've also got very specific tailored courses within Reed, within learning and development. And instead of someone going away for 3 days, and learning these skills, which is what they used to do for the manor. At the moment, it's all been done remotely, and they've got the support of their colleagues there. So no, I think there's many advantages to training someone at the moment.
Yeah.
I have some concerns, if I may, Amy.
Yeah.
So I think we've seen on Read.co.uk a huge expansion in the number of online courses. There are over 55,000 now, and a huge increase in the number of people learning new things online, which is great. And you can do short courses, free courses, they're taster courses, and see if you're interested in something really easily. And you can learn a lot, as we've just heard, through lunch and learn sessions digitally. But I think there's a really important element of learning that is based on human contact. And I think we're missing out on that at the moment. And I think it's important that we get that back sooner rather than later, whether it's kids not being in schools or it's people not being together in the workplace, because young people, particularly coming into the workplace, a huge amount from the people around them. And they're sort of learning without even necessarily knowing they're learning, by listening, overhearing a telephone conversation or seeing how someone deals with a complaint. And all of that is being missed at the moment. So I think it's really important that this sort of human contact aspect of learning is revived as soon as we're able to do it, and that we get back together. And it's particularly important for people in the starting out in their careers, because I think they're missing out on a lot.
Yeah, it's all a bit of a 50. I think it's a bit of a 50-50. Need a bit of everything.
That's the beauty, isn't it, Amy? Is that we want to get there, don't we? So
yeah.
Right now it's forced to be digital, and that's not it's not the ideal solution. But one day, when lockdown's finally over, we'll hopefully be able to do both.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the development of digital learning is fabulous, and it sort of democratizes learning in a whole new way when you can do so much for free. I mean, the best-selling course on our courses site on read.co.uk was British Sign Language. So lots of people are learning sign language, which is a great skill to have. So I think there are so many positives. But I am worried that this absence of human contact will have a lasting impact if it's not resolved fairly soon. I mean, how long can you reasonably be locked down and separated for? And my other concern is, companies become companies of strangers. We've all turned into talking heads on things like this. I haven't seen my dear friends in in ages, and it would be great to sort of meet them and share a cup of coffee or shake their hand. And I think we mustn't underestimate how important that is.
Yeah. Okay, next one. We've got loads come through. IAD has asked, in regards to the pharma industry, we saw a sustainable growth even during the pandemic, but what was affected the most is the recruitment process and the use of the unready artificial intelligence technology in the interview process. How can a company like yours help the pharma companies to keep attracting the right talent? Claire, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can do. I mean, we have had some real spikes in the pharma industry within certain roles, and one thing we've actually had to start, we've looked at, which is actually going into Europe as well for candidates, and having a global presence has massively helped us attract candidates, not just from the UK. So I think, not wanting to push Read completely all the time, but we have had to use all sorts of different techniques to attract candidates in the pharma industry, and pull on lots of different levers to get good shortlists for clients. It has been difficult, but yes, it's something that we enjoy the challenge. That's what you get paid to do, is to provide shortlists for clients. So if it means having to get great candidates from outside of the UK, then we will do that for roles that we know are hard to find.
Fab, thank you for that answer. Okay, one for anyone that's got any ideas on this, really. Any ideas, this is anonymous, on cost-effective ways to any ideas or cost-effective ways to improve employee satisfaction during a pandemic? Anything you've come across talking to people? Chris, have you come across anything?
I think the simplest answer here has to be people need to be valued. I imagine in most situations people are having to work really damn hard right now, and it's tough with the pressures of working from home, with homeschooling, bad broadband, not seeing people, the pressures from outside life. things are really tough right now, and I think feeling valued, listened to, heard, I think is probably one of the most important things. So I'd say, you talk about cost-effective things, picking up the phone, for no other reason than to ask, how are you getting on? How are things? Having genuine one-on-one conversations that you'd have had, at the water cooler or, out on a cigarette break or whatever you're doing. But yeah, for me, it's that personal contact and making people understand that you as a business and as a manager and a leader truly value the work they're putting in right now.
I mean, it has been tough, Amy, over the last 12 months. And some of the things that we've done, we've had probably, I guess, it's keeping the fun factor as much as you can. So we will have some fun sales days in work where, it could be themed or I was just on a team meeting before, and he had a day where everybody joined the call with a silly hat, so it costs nothing to go and find perhaps a silly hat to join the call. So you can do some things, I think, if you think creatively, and still have some fun, and it doesn't always have to cost a huge amount of money just to keep people smiling and positive. And as Chris said, that kind of reach out and just check in with people that they're actually doing okay costs nothing but goes a really long way. Yeah, because it can be pretty lonely for people at home all day, especially with the challenge of children at home as well.
Tell me about it. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was going to be my number one point, is that you do have to keep it fun, keep the communication lines open. I also think it's really important, being someone like myself as well, where actually someone needs the opportunity to get things off their chest. So it's really important, a quick phone call. We've got instant messages in the group, but where someone can just say, I'm actually having a really bad day. This has happened, and everyone can have a nice big giggle about the unfortunate day, and that person can get over it and move on it and get back to work and productivity. So yeah, just keep it fun and keep it light and keep the communication lines open.
I think
if I may, from a sort of company perspective, something we've done that's worked pretty well is road shows. So we've organised from different parts of the business to have presentations from different directors talking about what's happening to the business, how the business is moving forwards, what our plans are for the future. And we invite 100, 200 people on those calls, and rather like this format, people can ask questions. And I think people have found that helpful because people are hungry for information. They see all the change going on and they see the news, which is invariably pretty gloomy. And I guess they want to know how's that affecting us, or what's our future look like. So I think as a company, it's important to communicate what you're doing and why you're doing it and what's coming next. And we've been doing that, and we've seen good feedback from that. So that's a suggestion I'd make to you if you're asking yourself this question: what can we do to lift people's spirits or just help them be a bit better informed?
Thank you, James. Right, I think we're just about on time for finishing up. We've had a lot of questions come through, and I'm sorry if we've not got around to answering your questions. We will send a follow-up email, so if you're quite passionate about knowing something, please do let us know, and we can always address them later on. Thank you to the panel, and thank you to everybody for joining in. Thank you for taking the time, and we hope you found it really informative, really. And do keep an eye out on our social media channels and speak to your recruitment consultant to find out our latest up and coming events, because we do have them quite regularly. So I hope you found it useful, and have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you everybody for joining me on the call. Thank you, Lucy, James, Claire and Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.